What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
From evolution to dilution.
Well, we are spreading this out over the course of 2 days, but we are doing the predictions in one podcast because we are more efficient than that. So we are going to break down actually both days of the SummerSlam 2025 card. At least as far as what's currently announced, I don't think that we're necessarily going to get any changes to this card, although one of the things is sort of up in the air. And even by the time we talk about it on the hot tags, we probably won't know for sure if that's going to change or not. We'll address the whole Drew McIntyre situation as we go along here. But we're going to break down I believe it's 12 matches off the top of my head that are currently announced between these. It might be 13. And all of our other usual preview stuff here. We're going to talk about what we're excited about, what we're not excited about, who we think is going to win, how that's going to factor into the future, and all that good stuff. So we always invite everybody else to do the same thing. So just because you're listening doesn't mean you can't chime in with your thoughts on all sorts of different platforms. You can do that on Facebook, on Twitter, on smarkoutmoment.com. You can do that on our Discord channels that we have over there on the link that you should see on the sidebar of smarkoutmoment.com. The link below on YouTube, the link on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, although you can't click on it because that's not how YouTube works. But that is a great opportunity for you to just chat it up and just hang out with a bunch of other people that like the same stuff as you do. So if you are inclined to do that, hop on over. We'd love to have you. Also, keep in mind that if you are on YouTube, make sure that you leave a comment below. Make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, get all your email alerts set up for the live post shows that will be following both of the nights of SummerSlam this weekend and any other time that we go live as well. And if you got the spare change to help us out and keep the lights on here, we would greatly appreciate, even if it's $1 a month or something, the little thanks button that is up here on YouTube. It's a great way to do that. And the join button is another great method for that. Patreon.com/SmarkoutMoment is exactly the same as the YouTube channel membership on YouTube. The only difference being that if we do anything live, Patreon doesn't let you do anything live on that front. So I recommend the YouTube more though than the Patreon, but the Darkcast tier, Pick a Poison tier, it's all going to be the same on both of those. Redbubble and TeePublic is also where you can pick up merchandise if you're interested on that, or Fanboys Anonymous, or a Mango Tees. All that stuff out of the way. I'm trying to get this as quickly as I possibly can do. We're at like a 2-minute mark. I think I'm speeding through pretty well. So SummerSlam is quote unquote the biggest party of the summer, and it is kind of de facto the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And now we have another step forward in that evolution or dilution, as you said earlier, of this being the first ever 2-night SummerSlam. We haven't gotten into the minutia yet of people saying, well, it's the first, main event of SummerSlam, and then we get all the same discussion as we do with WrestleMania. But generally speaking, when I look at this card for SummerSlam right now, I think, all right, some of this makes sense as a SummerSlam card being like, it's the midway point to another WrestleMania. It's some of the biggest matches you can put on at the same moment. But a lot of it also feels like this could just be any other pay-per-view. And whether that's a 2-night split and some of the other matches wouldn't have made... We know for sure, obviously, some of these matches would not have made the card if it was a 1-night event. And I think we can kind of point out which ones that would have been in a lot of fashion. But I still think that there's potential for both of these nights to be overall solid, even though I think one of them is handedly going to be better than the other one. Like, there's no question which one of these 2 nights I'm more anticipating. Now, you're not watching these, I'm assuming. Or actually, are you going to make an exception? Are you going to watch either of these?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I didn't watch the Royal Rumble this year. You think I'm going to watch this shit?
Right.
2 nights of it?
But if you were to be checking this out, is there a particular night 2 was significantly better than night 1 kind of feeling for you, like it is for me, or vice versa?
Well, it's significantly more lopsided in the sense that there's only one match on night 2 that's got rules attached to it, because all the rest of them are no DQ matches.
It is a little crazy how they split this up.
Yeah.
And it's like not even just about like the no DQ thing, but it's even like, just say if you take out, you know, the stipulations, a lot of it is still just sort of like, you really want to have 3 tag team matches on night 1 and then no tag team matches except for the ladder match on night 2. Like you couldn't maybe swapped maybe the Roman and Jelly Roll thing from one night to the other or something.
Yeah, it's, as I say, I don't think they've like balanced it particularly fantastically. But I mean, there are some decent matches on here, or at least on paper, so that should work out. I mean, in terms of balancing night 1 and night 2, night 1 definitely has the weaker overall card from just a match quality standpoint. From just, yeah, I imagine that overall it's going to lean worse whether you go with like average match ratings, star ratings, however you want to determine it, just your own enjoyment of it. I think that it's going to be overall a worse show. But then night 2 is going to be main evented by John Cena, and so it's going to suck by comparison in that regard. So it's going to be one of these weird things where probably the whole of most of night 2 is going to be pretty good, and then the main event's going to ruin it. Whereas the other one, at least if you keep a steady like level of, I don't want to say mediocrity, but a steadier level, a more consistent flow, then maybe you won't feel as bad at the end of it.
Between the 2 nights, SummerSlam only seems to really apply to night 2 to me. Night 1 feels like that could very easily just be like, Bash in Berlin type show. And I would assume that if there was only one night of WrestleMania, they would cut a good portion of the matches from night 1. There's 2 matches. Actually, there's 3 matches in night 2 that I think could potentially get the axe on that front. We don't have to worry about that because it is a 2-night show. So, you know, this is what we got lined up. Now, one of those matches that is a little bit still questionable is Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul versus Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. There are a couple things to address here. But one of them is we might not even get Drew McIntyre in this match. And as far as I'm aware, this hasn't been sorted out yet, at least as far as 315 on the 30th. I don't know, at least as far as reports go from that. I mean, maybe it is being sorted out right now and we just don't know because it's, you know, it's not our business. But last I had heard, Drew McIntyre was not able to get into the country due to forgetting his proper documentation. And I don't know how quick and easy that is to be able to like fly back and grab it or get a new one or, you know, whatever. I'm assuming it's significantly worse now based off of the way that traveling is worse now because of political climates and, you know, the stupid regimes that we have going on and all. But if he does not get the option to come back in time, I mean, he's even on Saturday. It's not like they can really particularly swap that to another night, especially because that might conflict with Jelly Roll's schedule and Logan Paul's schedule and whatever. There's an option that they could potentially do that if that ends up being the case. But I think more than likely, if he is not in the country by, you know, Friday morning, that we're going to see that SmackDown gets some changes to this. And the best pitch that I've seen is LA Knight's not on this card. And he's one of the few names that's like big enough and interesting enough and popular enough that it's weird that they didn't put him on here. Yeah, like they still have some other people like Penta's not on here and, you know, so on and so forth. But I like the pitch that, hey, you're working with what you're working with. Logan Paul makes sense to team up with The Miz and Carmelo Hayes. And then you just throw Logan Paul, Miz, Carmelo is now a 6-man tag, Randy Orton, Jelly Roll, and LA Knight. And you just do it that way. I can't think of anything that would work better in the circumstances, but it would suck if Drew McIntyre is not there because Drew McIntyre is going to be the linchpin of this entire match. You know, I'm certainly not excited to see Jelly Roll wrestle. I'm not it just doesn't appeal to me. Let's put it that way. Tell me how you agree, disagree when it comes to all this. I know that you're not going to really be supportive of The Miz jumping in there, but
well, it doesn't matter. I'm not watching anyway, and like Jelly Roll's already in it, so Miz can't be worse than now. I don't know how well he's trained, or if he's one of these like ducks to water type, like I don't know, like Logan Paul or Bad Bunny in terms of his in-ring ability. So I don't know, maybe you can surprise us. I know you saw him hit the like the black hole slam on someone. So there could be. It probably won't be good because just his involvement, and I don't think it's the celebrity thing. That's a SummerSlam trope, so I can understand why they're doing it. The suggestion of putting like the Miz, Carmelo Hayes, and LA Knight in it can't make it any worse. Put it that way. I mean, if Drew McIntyre is not involved and he's out of the country, my preference would be just do Randy Orton versus Logan Paul and have Jelly Roll in Randy Orton's corner. Just do that instead. Wouldn't
be opposed to that. That's a good way to,
But I guess it depends. It depends on what the plan for the match is as well, because they had Randy Orton beat Drew McIntyre at Saturday Night's main event, so conventional logic would dictate that McIntyre and Logan Paul would win this one in order to make it one-on-one from McIntyre and Orton's perspective and do some kind of rubber match down the road. But then again, like it's Jelly Roll's first match, and usually when they have this celebrity person appearing, admittedly we have two celebrities, but at least one of them has been around with WWE for quite a while, so it feels a bit more embedded in the actual roster. But you usually have the celebrity win, so it's the idea of, okay, if you could put the Miz and Carmelo Hayes on that side, then it makes it understandable that Jelly Roll just splashes the Miz and gets the victory, because at the end of the day, how much more credibility does the Miz have to lose? So
yeah, especially if it ends up being like an RKO and then whatever Jelly Roll does to follow it up. Then it's like the RKO basically already took him out,
I bet whatever his finisher is, it's called the Jelly Roll.
I'm assuming it would be some kind of country crap. Like
well, you do the Jelly Roll as like a second rope swanton or something like that. I don't know. Or just roll on top of the guy and then that wins the match.
You're giving him far more credit than I'm giving him. I'm like, oh, he might do a choke slam again. Like I'm doing the most of the moves that I've seen him do so far, him standing and then the other person doing everything. So I'm like, oh, his finisher is going to be a heart punch or something.
Well, it's one of these things where, like, I think we judge celebrities based on like our perception of it from the past, but I think that the modern day celebrities that actually do these matches, I guess celebrity in whatever terms you want to define it, but they all seem to take it a lot more seriously than people used to. Well, yeah. You're looking at like Bad Bunny was a big fan, and he did a lot of stuff that looked pretty cool. Logan Paul obviously is taken to it quite naturally. Look at Big Boom AJ over in the AEW. I mean, obviously he had a previous wrestling background, which helps, but he doesn't do much, but he does enough to get the crowd excited. You look at
Stephen Amell.
Stephen Amell in the past. Like, I think there are people that really want to not necessarily do this full time, but they want to, for their one-off appearance on this thing, want to take it seriously and want to put on a good show for people. They're not just there because who they are on the name of them and then just like rolling around for a little while. This isn't Snooki at WrestleMania levels, I don't think. So I'd say I'm not going into it thinking it's going to be a 5-star classic, but I think he'll try and do his absolute best.
Yeah.
To do something that is memorable and makes him and the other guys look good. So I'd say the only real question mark is whether McIntyre is in. It just makes it more. If McIntyre's out and they do have to replace him with either just the Miz and Logan Paul or your 6-man tag option, then I think the babyfaces win comfortably.
Yeah,
I think the babyfaces probably win either way, but it's more up in the air if it's McIntyre and Logan Paul. So
yeah, at least at that front, I could see a scenario where McIntyre comes out on top just to balance it out a little bit, but I'm still leaning, even if it is McIntyre, I still think that it's probably Logan Paul takes a pin, actually, as opposed to McIntyre. And then, because I don't really see, unless it's Randy Orton getting pinned from McIntyre after a Claymore, specifically to set up something, a Clash in Paris, like that they have like a true goal in mind. I don't think Jelly Roll's getting pinned, even though that would make the most sense, because I just sort of almost don't even see. I mean, he took a Claymore I don't know. Maybe that is just Jelly Roll's willing to take a pin. But I'm going to go with the baby faces on here as well. There are a couple matches on here that I'm not too sure where they're going to go. And one of them is Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship, because I just did not anticipate that they would go in this direction without having Naomi as this other element of it. And she is obviously well out of that picture. Not only is she on the Monday Night Raw roster now and on the opposite night of the show, wrestling with her championship that she already cashed in her Money in the Bank for, but they've not teased anything at all, like in that fashion or whatever. So I don't know. I don't see where they're quite going, because this hasn't even been like a story. It's essentially just been Jade's got this match and let's wait 2 months and we'll do whatever with either of them in the meantime. And then now they're on like their third week or so of cutting promos of like, well, we're going to have that match. Like, there's no substance to this. And they're both baby faces right now. I can't imagine the match is going to be particularly great, although I could be proven wrong. If Stratton retains, I think people are going to boo. If Cargill wins, I think people are going to be upset. So unless this is going to boil down to like Bianca comes out and she turns heel and she costs Jade or something, or Jade turns heel and beats Tiffany and we get that going on, I'm just kind of at a loss for what they're going for. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Jade wins the championship than Tiffany retains, though.
Yeah, so I think maybe there's a potential of just reading too much into it. It's just a case of they want Jade Cargill to be champion, and Tiffany's the current champion, and so they're just going to have Jade beat Tiffany. I think we're at the point now with Jade where it's nearly 2 years since she made the switch over to WWE and debuted. Like, she hasn't really kicked on or built up a huge ton of momentum. Obviously, she was part of the tag team with Bianca for most of last year, but it's only recently she's broken out and done more singles action past her previous injury. And I think that it's shit'll get off the pot time with her. It's like, if you're going to make her a world champion or you're going to make her a big deal and a big focal point, you have to do it now, because you wait too long and people just aren't going to care. And it's nothing to do with the fact, well, it's a lot to do with the fact that just her ring work, even though that isn't as big a deal with WWE, isn't up to scratch with a lot of the other women. Although, like, having said that, the match with Naomi at Evolution was probably better than expectations. But as I say, is that a sign of general improvement, or is that a flash in the pan one-off moment due to the fact that they could do a load of smoke and mirrors because there's no disqualification match? So that's probably the biggest issue with this one, is that it's not even it's babyface, but what I'm kind of anticipating is it's like nonchalance versus nonchalance, in terms of like Tiffany's like a crowd reaction or crowd response seems to have declined a lot in her reign. She's gotten more generic from what she used to be. She just says her catchphrases and cuts pretty nothing promos for the most part, and has been feuding with the same people.
She's regressed, it seems.
Yeah, has been feuding with the same people over and over and over again, which is, well, it was Nia Jax and then Charlotte briefly for WrestleMania, and then back to Nia Jax essentially for the whole time. So that's obviously not going to help her appeal, but her reign has just become pretty monotonous and has been going on for a long time. So I think it's just based on Tiffany holding the title for 8 months, and Jade being someone that if they're going to push properly, they need to do it now. Then I think just all points to they're just putting the title on Jade, and they didn't want anything to get in the way of that.
And it is SummerSlam. A lot of title changes.
That's where title change.
SummerSlam.
Yeah, the title changes only happen at WrestleMania and SummerSlam for most of the big titles. So
right. So it's like, even if it doesn't make sense on paper to do this, and it hasn't been a feud that seems like they would be passionate about, and it sort of just seems like they're just waiting until they can pull the trigger on whatever it is that they want to do. There have been instances in the past where that's been the case, and then it's like, okay, well, the reason why it felt so weird was because they were setting up this twist, and we didn't see the twist coming because the way that they set up the twist wasn't really good storytelling. But now that they have an interesting twist, now let's take it in an interesting direction. Because face it, like, I mean, the same applies to movies as well, TV shows, whatever it might be. Wrestling slightly different in that, you know, most of the time a movie or a TV show, just structurally, it tends to be better storytelling. Even if it's not a good movie, it tends to be like, okay, well, they're clearly going in A, B, C, D direction, and then the twist might be like, oh, actually, that was I didn't think that it was actually going to be that person that was the killer. In pro wrestling, a lot of the times it's such a wait and come back around to it later filler scenario where week to week it almost feels like nothing happens, and then you go, oh, okay, it's because they had a 4-week period where they couldn't do anything, or they didn't know what to do, or whatever, and now we're going in this direction. So it's going to make a lot more sense after SummerSlam, which is like a cop-out answer to say, like, sure, we'll know where they're going after they start going in that direction. But I'm interested to see which option they pick, because if they keep it on Tiffany Stratton, then I still don't understand why they went with Jade Cargill in this spot, just to be like, well, why not? And sometimes they do that. But if they go with Jade winning the title, I'll be a little bit confused about why they didn't bother to give Tiffany anything to do over her title reign. Now that I watched, I finished episode 5, but after watching Unreal, I take it with a grain of salt, how much of that is actually real and how much of that is like staged and whatever. I do kind of get a little bit of a sense that maybe they didn't really love this Tiffany Stratton title reign, and that they maybe just didn't have anybody else in mind that they were thinking that's the person we want to really go with, especially because Bianca's been out for such a long time. Maybe if Bianca would have been healthy and able to wrestle over the past couple of months, maybe they would have switched it to Bianca or Jade before that or something. I don't know. But I do think Jade is more likely to be walking out of here as champion than Tiffany. And obviously we'll be right or wrong when it comes to Saturday. As far as another women's championship match that's on this card for the first night, the tag team titles are on the line. The Judgment Day's Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez are up against Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. And this is another one that I'm like, you know what? It could go either way. They didn't win the titles when they had their 4-way at Evolution. And I thought that that was potentially going to happen, but I leaned a little bit more towards Judgment Day then. Now, it's been a few weeks. They could drop the titles, and it could just be, well, we didn't want to have them lose titles yet. We wanted to have that at SummerSlam or whatever. Just as easily, it could just be Bliss and Flair are meant to challenge, but they're not meant to be a long-term tag team, and that they want to continue what they've been doing for the longest time. They love putting tag titles in particular on the Judgment Day. There's no danger right now for Finn Balor and JD McDonough. Like, they just had the whole LWO thing. They're fine. They're not losing those tag belts on SummerSlam anyway because they're not booked. Dom is on night 2. We'll talk about him in a few minutes and kind of break down the Intercontinental title, but I'm just going to spoil right now. I think Dom's retaining. And when you've got that going on, it's more than likely the Judgment Day probably will keep the women's tag titles too. But then if it's not Bliss and Flair, who beats them for him and when?
Yeah, so the speculation, or at least the reports and rumors going into this, was that it was actually going to be penciled in as Bliss versus Flair for SummerSlam. Which, as I say, you can buy whatever you want to into those sort of like rumors and speculation. I can understand that being a plan that was pitched at one point, whether they change their mind one way or the other. But I think that the reason why they've doing this and they're keeping up the tag team, if there was a plan to split them up sooner than what has been now, is because the team is getting really good crowd reactions. and people seemingly more into. They're actually cheering Charlotte Flair, it felt like an impossible Herculean feat, like weeks and months
2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago, and then another part of her career, she's never felt organically over, and being attached to such an perpetually over character like Bliss means that it's rubbed off on Charlotte, and she now feels organically over, and she feels more human than she has done in a while. Which is weird when she's being teamed up with like someone who seems not very human anymore. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the reason why the team's still together, and that's also why I think they're going to win, because even if it wasn't in the plans long term, inevitably there is going to be a Charlotte and Alexa feud, and I think it just makes more sense for that feud to happen after they've won the titles, held it for, even if it's just like a month or two, and just, parade it around for a little while, appear on both shows, you get Charlotte and Alexa on both Raw and SmackDown for a while. They then drop it, that gives the impetus for either Charlotte or Alexa to turn on each other and start off the inevitable singles feud between them. So I think that's just more interesting right now than just keeping the title on Roxanne and Raquel. The other maybe potential star in the works is what Liv Morgan's status is.
Right. Now,
in terms of, because, yeah.
Go ahead. You can kind of assume that she probably won't be back for at least a little while. And I believe, I might be wrong about this off the top of my head, but I believe the estimate was something like, we hope she's back by the beginning of the new year, like Royal Rumble. And, we've been told that kind of stuff before in the past, and it's been like, we hope that the person's back by 3 months, and then 7 months later, they're still not back yet. And we've been told the John Cena things of like, well, we hope that that person's back in a year, and then 3 months later, suddenly they're popping up. So you gotta sort of not fully buy into all that. But if she does come back sooner rather than later, is that a reason why you should keep the belts on them, or is that a reason why you should take the belts off of them instead? Because it could go one way or another. Do you do the whole like Raquel and Roxanne are champions, and Raquel starts making an argument to keep Roxanne around because they're successful, and that pisses off Liv? Or do you do the, well, we just dropped the titles and now there's no reason for Roxanne to still be here, and Raquel is still cool with Roxanne and we're still cool with Liv, so they boot out Roxanne or whatever? Or do you do even the opposite? Raquel likes working with Roxanne better somehow, and she is fine with Liv not being in there. Because no matter what's got to happen, I would assume when Liv comes back, she's going to get a babyface reaction, and they're probably going to almost de facto have to turn her babyface. Whether Raquel is in that mix or not, I don't know. Even as far as Monday, they were still trying to tell the story of that she's pro Liv. And the Finn Balor element of it all, like Finn and Roxanne are definitely obviously involved. Then there's the Finn and Dom thing, and you can kind of go back and forth between that. To me, I think it's just so much cleaner if you just take the belts off of them and you go with Liv in the future when she comes back. In the meantime, you can keep Roxanne around if that's going to be a couple of months, and she can just be doing shit with them. Like, they don't have to be tag team champions to be able to work together. And then Bliss and Flair go and they have their own fun. They start cycling through some other teams, and if not, then who the hell do Roxanne and Raquel fight? They've beaten the Kabuki Warriors twice now in the past month. Bayley and nobody is an option, because Bayley's done the whole woe is me, I'm so lost, I don't know what to do because I'm such a loser thing. Lyra and Bayley, I don't know if that makes any sense, but it would be just a rehash of what we've seen before. I don't see any options on Raw for them to go in other directions with Raquel and Roxanne as tag team champions. And then I look on SmackDown and it's sort of the same thing. It's not going to be them against the Secret Harvest. That's heel. Just put it on Bliss and Flair. That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
It appears to me the most logical approach, and so that's what I would predict as well.
We do have a new tag team in the sense of Julia and Kiana James. So that's another tag team for babyface teams to fight. And then, kind of go through the list of everything else that's going on like with that too. But I'm hoping it'll be Bliss and Flair. Right now, I'm going to predict that it is them too, but by the time we come back around to the Saturday, it might be like, okay, well, something happened on SmackDown where it might convince me otherwise. But I like the team. I think it's the most interesting that Charlotte's been in a little while. Gives them something to do. If not, what the hell does Charlotte do? Then again, maybe the plan is Charlotte goes and starts feuding with Jade Cargill. And then maybe we're not looking at like the trickle down effect or something. But Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross is again on this card with the same idea as what they've done before. I'm going to beat you in the match, and then you're going to admit that you're an asshole, I guess. They did it the last time, and then nothing happened out of it, so they're doing it again. I don't know when exactly Kross's contract is up, but I believe it's supposed to be sometime in August. So if he doesn't re-sign, then I think that it's as clear cut as Sami Zayn beats Karrion Kross, and that's the end of him that we see. And right now, I'm leaning towards that.
Yes, the highly anticipated rubber match on this show, which probably wouldn't even be on this show if certain other people were available. But
oh yeah, I mean it would be LA Knight versus Seth Rollins instead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, I don't see any logical reason to assume that Kross will win the rubber match over Zayn. I think if they have any hope of building Zayn up to be like a potential like world champion at any point in the future, even though that becomes less and less likely as the weeks go by, I think that I think that you need to have him win this match and Kross loses, especially if Kross's WWE status is in genuine doubts. So yeah, I think Zayn will just get the victory here.
And if it is the end of Kross in WWE, then at least that's some of a send off, because if everybody that Kross has been feuding with and saying is going to go in a different direction and turn heel, if most of them, if not everybody, actually does turn heel after that, then Sami Zayn comes around and it's like, no, I'm going to continue to be a babyface. And then that leads Karrion Kross to leave because he came across the one person he couldn't influence or something. It's not at all what I believe that they have been planning from the start or anything like that. I don't want to give them credit in backwards kind of booking that way, but I think if he's going to leave, then sure, that's a good enough set enough. But I'd be very surprised if Karrion Kross and Scarlett re-signed. Let's put it that way. There's a tag team match. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, in the sense that, like, I still have no idea where they'd go if they were to leave.
Yeah.
Because, put it this way, I know people might just... There's that some section of the deranged audience that really like Karrion Kross that think that, he could go to AEW. It's like, AEW didn't want him when they were signing everybody after people got released by WWE back when he was released the first time. You think it'd go for him now? Like, yeah. So I'd be interested to see where he would end up, which is probably in TNA, I imagine.
I mean, TNA is like, by default, it's the next best option that he could potentially be a world champion and could be making, I don't know what kind of money that the difference is. Obviously, it's not the same as main roster WWE money or anything. I'm sure he would want to go to AEW, but I don't think that they would pick him up. And then at that point, I don't know, maybe he would go through the indies. Maybe he would try to pop on over at New Japan or some kind of thing like that. Maybe for all we know, he wants to wrestle in Noah or something, but depends on how much money he's saved and how much money they want to make and how much money they want to book themselves for and stuff like that too. That's if he leaves. I mean, he might end up re-signing for all we know. And there's the Brons, because everybody's Bron. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed against Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. it's a SummerSlam match in the sense that these are names, and you go back in time enough, and tag team matches or whatever, the Mega Powers and so on and so forth. I'm not super particularly thrilled about just a generic tag team match like this that means absolutely nothing and is just there mostly so that you can check off names from this. Nor am I really thinking that this is going to lead anywhere. I think it's kind of as simple as just Roman and Jay win. And it's a little shame that Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed are not being pushed enough with Seth Rollins gone, that it could be like, this could have been an opportunity for Bron Breakker to be the standout guy. And instead, you're pretty firmly stuck in the idea of, we're waiting for Seth Rollins. These are the two mooks that are his sidekicks. Let's just kill some time until Rollins can be back. I'll put a pin in the Rollins discussion for a little bit later, too.
I think it's... I can understand the reason why they have to do this, just due to... I imagine that had situations been different, this would have been a six-man tag. Or you could have had LA Knight versus Seth Rollins, but I think there's a good chance it would have been a six-man tag of whether you end up going with Reigns, Jey Uso and LA Knight, or Reigns, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso versus like Seth Rollins' group. But situations had to change things. In a way, this is good for Kross and... Not Kross,
That's good for Kross and Zayn because they get on pay-per-view. But
yeah. For Reed and Breakker, because it means that they get to be more of a focal point rather than the understudies that they've just been under Rollins' control. So, yeah, I mean, the likelihood is that Reigns and Uso get the victory because Reigns is back and they want to make a big deal out of it. He's, well, all things being what was probably the plan in the first place, he'll be facing Seth Rollins for a world championship at WrestleMania to make up for what happened at the end of night one of WrestleMania last year. So I think that, well, this year as it is, it will be last year, I suppose, when next WrestleMania comes around. But I think that, but it depends on what they plan on doing with Bron and Reed in the meantime, because you could have Bron Breakker get a victory over Jey Uso, and that means that like you could have a match between Roman and Bron Breakker in the meantime, just to help build him up a little bit, give him build that up towards, depending on what Rollins' status is, obviously. But do that going into Survivor Series, have a big match there, and then then you're you one step closer to building him up to be a top level guy. So yeah, it just depends. Like if Reigns and Uso lose, then Uso's taking the pin. If Reigns and Uso win, then Reed is taking the pin. So the likelihood is that Reed just takes the pin, probably because he's the guy that probably has the least upward trajectory out of all of them. So despite how good he is or isn't, it's a case of, you clearly see it with Bron. We know Reigns' status. Jey Uso was world champion a couple of months ago. So I think that Reed is the fall guy in this whole situation.
They could even go with one of those shitty no contest type endings. Pisses people off, and it's not the best way of doing it, but it's an option if they wanted to be like, let's stretch this out, because the next event's Clash in Paris, and they haven't announced anything for that yet, except for Stephanie Vaquera fights whoever wins the Women's World Championship match. But are we going to get Roman on that card, or is that not Roman worthy enough? Let's put it that way. Because the next event that's following that, I believe, is Crown Jewel in Perth. Let me double check real quick about that. October 11th. At least they haven't announced anything yet for September. I'm assuming we'll probably get an NXT show like No Mercy. But they might announce something else in the meantime. But it's a little short notice for them to announce some kind of a pay-per-view for the main roster in September. So I'm assuming that August 31st Clash in Paris is basically like, all right, that's our September show. And waiting until Crown Jewel in Perth that's more than likely going to be the next time that you see Roman Reigns, because they want to really pack that. I was at the RAC arena, at least according to my current notes. I think that Clash probably won't include Roman, and it could just be as simple as Roman and Jay win this, and then Roman kind of just like fucks off for a little bit again and continues the trend of showing up, and then Roman Reigns returns a couple months later. But I think a lot of this depends as well on Gunther, CM Punk, and their plans of how they want to take that going forward. I said, no matter what, I think Roman Reigns and Jey Uso win this tag team match, but World Heavyweight Championship match, Gunther can retain, CM Punk could win the championship, or Seth Rollins could come and cash in. And I've kept Seth Rollins on my fantasy league team. And for anybody that's curious, of course, WWE FantasyLeague.com. Check to see how poor of a decision that might end up being, or how great of a decision that might end up being. I kept him on my team because I still feel like it's just too suspicious how they've been acting. And too much attention has been put on the idea of, well, we don't know when we're going to see Seth Rollins. I think that they're setting it up so that they can do a cash in. And that could be John Cena, Cody Rhodes as well. It doesn't have to be Gunther and Punk, but I'm currently thinking Gunther's not walking out of here with the championship. Seth Rollins is. And it's going to be like Punk nearly has Gunther won. Rollins runs in, stomps Punk, pins Gunther, or something along those lines. And then probably Clash in Paris. We get some kind of triple threat or something. And we start building towards that Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins thing. Rollins probably fights Jey Uso, maybe at Perth, like, you know, so on and so forth along those lines.
So, yeah, I say it very much depends on what Rollins' status is. And they have been very, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge about how Seth Rollins' status is, like, heavy-handedly saying that he's not ready to compete and he's going to be out for months and months. And so the more heavy-handed they're saying, and the more likely, like, reverse psychology, they're basically telling you that he's not that badly injured and he'll be back soon. So I can definitely see that being the case and there being a cash in. It confused me that it's like this is happening on night one, but then again, if they want to make night one and night two seem like big deals, they can't really just hide away and say, oh, we should put all the big stuff on night two because it makes night one seem pointless in comparison. So putting a cash in on that could make it interesting. I would like to see them. What I would do if that was the case, and let's go with the argument that Seth Rollins is healthy and he'll cash in on this show. I would wait until Punk wins the title. And what I mean by that is Punk wins against Gunther, and then Rollins cashes in on Punk. Because that feels more that feels more personal.
That is like a big middle finger of like, you did just win the championship, and you can add another championship to CM Punk's reign through that. And technically even kind of push Gunther out of the title picture if you really wanted to go in that range and be like, okay, well then we just go Punk and Rollins, and Gunther lost the championships, so he goes and... Well,
especially if they're going down the route, which a lot of people are speculating is there's going to be a draft after SummerSlam.
Right.
That way you get Gunther, you move Gunther over to SmackDown so he can feud with...
John Cena, Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Cena, Cody Rhodes, anybody along those lines, but you can do that, and then that moves Gunther away. He's not tied to the World Championship anymore. I mean, that could happen either way, whether Rollins cashes in during the match, but like, I don't want to see, not that I'm going to be watching closely either way, but what the case of, well, we already had a mid-match cash-in with Tiffany, with Naomi on like the Evolution. We're going to do another mid-match cash in, another triple threat one, rather than just, wait until one of them wins the match and do a more, I guess what you'd say, quote unquote, traditional style cash in. So I'd go that route because it means that, yeah, you add one more reign onto Punk's total. He gets to say that he was world champion again back in WWE. They can lord that over, I don't know, the AEW side of things as well, and just say, yeah, he became world champion again here. You make Rollins...
It might even fulfill a contractual obligation. I don't know
I'd be
like how
surprised.
that would work.
I'd be surprised if
But
WWE. Well, why would WWE let say in his like negotiations coming in? Oh yeah, but you got to make me world champion at some point. It's like, well, where the fuck
yeah,
are you going to go if you don't?
more than likely
if you
that's
say no?
not in
Yeah,
the contract. But it could be like almost like a verbal thing of like,
yeah,
hey, we'll put the belt on you, and then it's like, well, technically we did put the belt on you, and no, we're gonna tell a good story out of it, and we'll come back around to it, even if we decide not to come back around to it. You know, the kind of like somebody re-signs a few days after they win the Intercontinental Championship, and then 3 weeks later they lose the Intercontinental title, and you're like, okay, that's what it's for. Like, you know.
I think in a way WWE will see it if they go that route of like a reward for good behaviour and like the fact that he has gotten over and been as good as they hoped him to be, and he's done everything they wanted him to do, and then they decide, oh yeah, we're making the world champion, but then we've got to continue what we have been doing, and so if he does become world champion, he's going to lose it like minutes afterwards because we have to keep fucking him as many ways as you possibly can just for the temerity of leaving and then cutting off all his other options.
Also, it keeps the fans to be like, we gave him a taste, and now they want it even more. And now Punk is like, he can say the whole like, I had it in my hands and you snatched it away from me, you fucker, and you know.
Yeah, it gives Seth an immediate feud when he's back in that could last for a while, and then you could have Punk either win it at some point or just fall short, and then you just build up to what we expect to be the inevitable Reigns and Bryan's match for the title at WrestleMania. So yeah, that's probably potentially what I'm leaning to. Either way, I'm leaning towards Punk wins the title. The cash-in is up in the air beyond that point, but just for my prediction for the match itself, I would say that Punk wins the title before any cash-in were to happen.
I'm kind of thinking that way a little bit more too, and the more time that goes by where nothing convinces me otherwise, the more that I do think that Gunther probably is the last match for John Cena in December. They haven't announced this Ruthless Aggression pay-per-view, but then again, you know, they haven't. It's different when it comes to NXT and it comes to the main roster, sure, but like NXT right now has Heatwave that they're going to be building up to. They don't have anything at all announced for the rest of the year. And typically speaking, No Mercy would be on the lineup. Halloween Havoc would be on the lineup. At least one TV show that they give a name to would be on the lineup. And Deadline would be on there. In the past couple of years, Deadline has been the only show that they have done pay-per-view wise in December. They do have, I believe it's one more Saturday night's main event scheduled for the end of the year, because they technically, I guess, well, I don't know. I mean, July isn't really quarter 3. Maybe there's 2. I'm not entirely sure. And Saturday night's main event's kind of a little mini PLE in some ways. We have Survivor Series that's on November 29th. Crown Jewel, Perth, whatever. It would be weird if they didn't announce something for December for John, and he only has a limited amount of dates. I think that we're going to get Gunther John Cena, and if it's not going to be Gunther John Cena as like a championship match in some fashion, then Gunther's got to drop the title at some point, and it's not like there aren't options to navigate Punk in that position or Rollins in that position. With keeping in mind too, and I'm going to spoil, of course, what I think when it comes to night 2, but yeah, what the hell, why not? I think John Cena's losing the street fight, and Cody Rhodes is winning the championship. And the next pay-per-view that we do have, guaranteed past Clash in Paris, is Crown Jewel. Now, they specifically had said, and they're calling this Crown Jewel, even though it's in Perth instead of in Saudi Arabia, they specifically had said this was planned to be a yearly thing to do this Crown Jewel championship concept. And just because it's in Perth doesn't mean that they won't continue to do that. It'd be weird if they would have had, let's do a pay-per-view in Perth, and we're going to not do the Crown Jewel thing, but we're going to call it Crown Jewel. They would have just called it something else. It would have been Peril in Perth or something like that. That's champion versus champion. Jade, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Stephanie Vaquer. That's kind of the group that we're working with on the women's side. We'll talk about that again in a minute. On the men's side, Gunther, Punk, Rollins, Cena, Rhodes. Maybe the plan is John Cena versus Gunther. I highly doubt that that's happening there. I really doubt that the plan is John Cena as champion heading into Crown Jewel and he fights CM Punk again. I don't think that there's any chance it's John Cena as champion walking into Crown Jewel and fighting Seth Rollins. But it could be Cody Rhodes versus Punk, Gunther, or Rollins. And all three of those options make sense. Maybe Gunther retains, and maybe he beats Cody this time, and it's just the opposite of what we got last year. Maybe Punk is champion, and that's how we get our CM Punk and Cody Rhodes match. Or, and this is the option that I think is most likely, maybe Rollins does win this championship, either a cash-in directly at SummerSlam or at Clash in Paris or something like that. And then it's Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, and you're getting just as big of a match as the other options. But I am currently going, I think Punk either temporarily wins the title and drops it to Rollins, or Punk wins the title and he drops to Rollins by Crown Jewel. And then I think Cody Rhodes beats John Cena. So we might as well just talk about that one too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say that Cody's going to beat John Cena just because this is the opportunity to switch the title back to him. Rhodes is the face of WWE of this current iteration, alongside Roman, obviously. But him taking the title back probably makes sense. It also can set in motion what needs to happen, which is John Cena turning babyface again.
Mm-hmm.
Because this heel turn, let's say we've discussed it. We don't need to relitigate too much, but it's an absolute unmitigated disaster. And so they need to turn him back. And so the way they can do that, they've done it with street fights. They can do the smoke and mirror effect of having like Rhodes and Cena kick out of big finishers and moves just to show John Cena still has a load of heart to him. Rhodes can maybe take advantage of Cena, not necessarily turning heel, but using the championship to hit Cena in order to win it back. So kind of going full circle for what happened at WrestleMania, and then Cena shakes his hand and starts the process of being a babyface for his final few months of being a full-time wrestler. So yeah, that's pretty much the way that I see it going. I don't think it's going to change that much. We're not going to see, well, at least based on reports, there's going to be no instances of Travis Scott showing up to ruin the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think it's a plain and simple title change. Rhodes is your new champion and will be feuding with Gunther over the title going into at least the considerable future once Gunther's traded over to SmackDown.
And I mean, as far as WrestleMania is concerned, they might have plans already. Maybe they don't. We've seen, even on the Unreal documentary, they could have plans a couple weeks beforehand and then it can change. I still kind of feel like maybe some of their plans that they had before would have made more sense. Like the Gunther Punk would have happened at Mania, and Jey Uso would have been in I think it was like a 6-man ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, and that would have made a little bit more sense to me in some fashions too. Maybe the plan is Cody Rhodes versus Gunther at WrestleMania, and that can be told by proxy of a couple months from here. Gunther drops the title to CM Punk or Seth Rollins, whatever it might be. Gunther gets traded over to SmackDown. Gunther starts a feud with John Cena. In December, Gunther retires John Cena. Gunther wins the Royal Rumble. Gunther challenges Cody Rhodes. Maybe Gunther beats Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Or maybe he loses. I don't know. Or we could be looking at a scenario where maybe the plan is Seth Rollins cashes in on Cody Rhodes after the street fight. I would kind of hate that, because I don't want to see Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I kind of want to get these people away from each other and to start, moving some other names into the mix. It doesn't need to be Cody, Roman, and Rollins all just against each other over and over and over again. But, yeah, I think it's time for John Cena to turn face. And the next couple matches that he has left and however many appearances he has, let's get a Drew McIntyre John Cena thing in there. let's get the Cody Rhodes stuff out of the way and do John Cena versus Gunther. Let's do John Cena versus, I don't know. I mean, there's a few people that could be potentially interesting, but like, they're not even continuing the R-Truth story anymore, so it's not like you can do another thing with John Cena and R-Truth. That's already been done to death. Cena loses the title here. Rhodes walks out champion. Ideally, rather without Seth Rollins cashing in my mind. Let's go to Dominic Mysterio versus AJ Styles, singles match for the Intercontinental Championship. I am firmly in the camp that Dominic Mysterio retains here. A lot of people are saying that they think that AJ wins. I think that that's just biased towards people liking when AJ Styles wins and not quite realizing that AJ Styles could perpetually win any championship at any moment. He's big enough for that, and sure, everybody would buy it. But he's also exactly in the type of position that he can put over somebody like a Dominic Mysterio and be the type of guy that you go into a pay-per-view assuming he's going to win just so he loses and then, you know, can move on to whatever his other feud. Dom has not feuded with Finn Balor over this championship directly yet. And I still think that that's happening. So I'm going Dom retains by hook or by crook. Mostly by crook.
Yeah, so it's difficult to predict this one because it could go very much one way or the other. I just think that because Dom's been champion since WrestleMania and it's SummerSlam, that's when you make the title change. I just assume they're just going to give it to AJ. But it depends. You know that we know, well, but based on Slammiversary, there might be a future of AJ Styles appearing in TNA soon. Maybe they want to bring the Intercontinental title over to that. I doubt that makes a difference one way or the other because it's AJ Styles, and so it doesn't matter if he's holding a title or not. It's not going to make it any more appealing. But yeah, I just think that just due to the nature of timing and how long Dom has been champion, it just feels like they're not going to keep it on him for a supreme long amount of time. But there is the argument that like Balor would take the title off of him, but you could make the argument of, let's say Judgment Day loses tag titles, the women's tag titles, and Dom loses the Intercontinental title here, then it's only Finn and JD that have titles, and so Finn can kind of lord it over them by saying, hey guys, like, what happened? Like, we were dominant, we had all these titles, and now you've lost all of them, and that could lead into the Dom and Finn feud that's inevitably going to happen. So, yeah, I think that it could very much go either way. I'm going to lean towards AJ winning the title.
I feel like Dom's successor is whoever gets potentially traded over from SmackDown in a draft. Still sort of, they didn't announce any draft for all we know. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it's just a few trades happen here and there randomly like they've been doing, but I still feel like somebody else is going to beat Dom, but it could go one way or another. I don't think there's any.
Does you have someone in mind, or is it just some random person from SmackDown that we don't know yet?
I think that it could be LA Knight.
Isn't LA Knight already part of Raw?
No, technically he's still a SmackDown guy.
Okay.
I think that they could potentially like just have him actually fully switch over. I think that there's maybe a chance that they come back around to putting something on Damian Priest or Jacob Fatu or, you know, a couple other people here and there. There actually aren't a whole lot of options on SmackDown that would be like, okay, well then if it's not one of those few guys, then it's definitely this guy. Cause it's like, all right, DIY is definitely just in the tag team division. Apollo Crews isn't around doing anything because he's got an injury and they were using him not in that kind of fashion anyway. But I think that there's also a chance that it could be Jimmy Uso. And not that he's like, quote unquote, earned it, but it is a little bit weird if he doesn't become a singles champion at some point too, and just is firmly in the Jannetty spot in that kind of way. But I also think that there's a good chance that whenever Ilya Dragunov comes back, and he is a Raw superstar right now, but they could always just be like, he's fresh, and that's what matters. I could see Dragunov being the guy that beats Mysterio too.
I mean, I'm also part of like the mindset of like just if even if AJ wins the title here, he could drop it like the day after, or
True.
the Raw after. So I know they don't typically do that because they tend to have longer reigns, but I don't think. I for some reason I just think that AJ is going to win. It's purely, well, primarily the like WrestleMania to SummerSlam effect. Like he's just held the title too long, so they're going to change it for the sake of changing it.
Well, as far as people holding things longer versus, it's too soon to change the title or whatever. I don't think there's any chance Solo Sikoa drops the United States title to Jacob Fatu. They're in a steel cage match. It's booked in the scenario that we see 1,000 times. We've seen more than 1,000 times probably at this point. Actually, no, that sounds ridiculous. It sounds like, well, we've seen it a million times. It's probably happened 30 times in the history of the company or something. But it's a rule of thumb. If a babyface has a steel cage match against a heel that has a bunch of people that work with them, unless it's the feud ender and we gotta change the championship and we gotta have this person win because it's going to set up something for Mania or like something that like it definitively must go in that direction, it will always default to the steel cage is supposed to keep out Tonga, Tongaloa, and JC Mateo. Oh, look at that. They happen to climb the cage, or they happen to do some kind of thing where the referee gets taken out and then the door gets opened and then they jump in there, or surprise, surprise, a bunch of people were all getting into something with those three. And you assume that that's everybody, but now Tama Tonga is actually back and he was able to do something. It's always the heels taking advantage of the steel cage match, and they always end up winning. Solo just won this championship. Jacob doesn't need a title to be over as fuck. Solo's retaining.
See, before you said any of that, and again, maybe this is just an evidence of that I'm not watching, I just assumed Jake Fatu's just going to win the title back. And my mindset for that is that I just don't think Solo is considered like a long-term champion. It's just there because, they had the big feud with like them being together as a team and part of the bloodline, and then like separating. Solo wins the title off of Jake Fatu, holds it for a couple of months, and then drops it back to Fatu because he's the main guy and the one they actually want to build something with. So yeah, I kind of just see Solo as a means to an end, really, for this, which is okay. He holds the title for a little while and then hands it back to Jake Fatu in this steel cage match at SummerSlam. So you get another big moment for Fatu, and then you can move Solo or Fatu over depending on how they want to approach things in the draft, and like separate them from each other so you don't have to end up in like a death feud, which plagued a lot of the Bloodline story. And yeah, that's just what I anticipate happening. So I probably will just go with Fatu wins the title back.
So that's 2 in a row that we're disagreeing on. Are we going to disagree when it comes to Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria? The stipulation here is the opposite of what we had gotten before in one of their other matches. Basically, it's it's a street fight for the one thing. It's a triple threat match, which is no DQ. It's whatever. This one, they're for some reason classifying no disqualification, no count out. Why? I don't know.
Got to distinguish it somehow.
Yeah. It's a last chance match in the sense that if Lyra Valkyria doesn't win the championship, she can't challenge for this title as long as Becky Lynch is champion. Opposite side of it, if Lynch wins, obviously then Lyra doesn't get the chance to do that, and then Lynch can continue, and then we can tell that story of Becky as champion is pro Becky, it's anti Lyra. If Lyra wins, who does she fight afterward, and where does Becky go? I think the obvious thing here is that Lyra loses.
Yeah, it seems like the most logical and most highly potential move, just because it depends on what they see for Lyra and what they see for Becky in terms of where they go next beyond this point. Because Lyra, if she doesn't win this, could easily get lost in the shuffle a bit, because she's not yet ready to be at the world title level, even though I think she's improving. Not necessarily promo skills with her Becky stompers. But I think that
in
she
2 weeks, in 1 week.
Yeah. But I do feel she's at a higher level than she was prior to holding the Intercontinental title. And Becky is a bigger star, so moving her up, having her lose this, put over Lyra, but then move up to the world title picture by proxy could benefit her and benefit the division in the long term. But I think the route is that you're going to have a lot of people that could potentially fight for the Intercontinental title very soon, because let's say, it depends obviously what happens in the Women's World title match, but you could realistically have people like Asuka, Io, Rhea even, Stephanie Vaquer, lots of people that would potentially be at that Intercontinental Championship level. And so having Becky around for that and not just switching it back to Lyra for the sake of it could make those matches feel like a bigger deal. So, yeah, and in the meantime, you could move Lyra into the tag division, team her back up with Bayley, do stuff there instead, or, you know, still have Lyra go around and form another feud with someone else, maybe move her over to SmackDown, and then she can go after the US title, so there's someone other than just Zelina Vega and Julia and Mia Yim just fighting constantly for this championship. So yeah, I guess that's probably the most sensible route, is Lyra loses here, like Becky gets the win, retains the championship, continues on Raw, and then you move Lyra over to SmackDown as part of these trades or draft or however they're going to approach it, and she has a new batch of people to battle for the title, battle for different titles.
Because again, like, we don't know if there is a draft, but it is very weird that they still haven't done a draft. And there were some reports that said that maybe they were thinking about that being a post SummerSlam thing. It could just be a matter of this year they thought that they had enough other stuff that they wanted to continue and they didn't want to switch everybody around. It could be that Triple H doesn't like the draft, or it could be that they want to try this option and be like, well, if SummerSlam is typically the time of the year that they feel like they hit a snag and that they are like, man, it would be more fun to build more towards WrestleMania at that midway point when we have a stronger idea about what we want to do for Mania, and then kind of continue after that and stuff. I mean, it could be one way or another, but I do see more value in the idea of Lyra being like, let's switch Lyra over to the opposite brand. And you can do Lyra, Julia, you can do Becky versus Io, like you had said. You know, it's not like there's no options. And on the opposite side of this thing, I mean, if Lyra wins the championship back, I look at the Raw roster. If we don't get some kind of a switch, the hell does Lyra fight? You know, she's already beaten everybody. Yeah, then the other people are baby faces. And then it's just, it's the same things over and over again. So I'd rather it be Becky retaining and then hopefully switching up the roster a little bit. I am very excited about this 6-pack tables, ladders, and chairs match, aka ladder match, because it's the same exact thing, for the WWE Tag Team Championship, because there are more than 12 people who are going to get involved in this. Technically speaking, the two representatives of the Wyatt Six are Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis, but Nikki Cross is going to get involved, and Bo Dallas is going to get involved, and you're right next to Uncle Howdy is going to be Eric Rowan. He's going to get involved. So you have 3 more people added to that. You've got Andrade and Rey Fénix. Still don't understand why that's a tag team and why it's not just, Lucha Bros, but whatever. You got DIY, which means Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa and Candice LeRae by proxy of doing something with Nikki Cross. You got Fraxium's Axiom and Nathan Fraser. You got Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin of the Motor City Machine Guns. And you got Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits. 12 plus people flipping around in this ladder match. It's going to be absolutely insane for them to keep track of, and it's just going to be spot after spot after spot. It's going to be messy as fuck, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah, it's, like this could be like the best match of the entire weekend, or it could be one of the most ridiculous clusterfucks we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, it's like,
Simultaneously, even.
yeah, exactly, and it's like with some of the names involved, we know that a lot of them have the ladder match experience. Andrade, Ray Fénix, DOY. I don't think Fraxium have been in a ladder match yet. Maybe they've separately, but I don't think as a team they've been in it. Mostly Machine Guns did plenty of those in TNA. Street Profits have done in NXT and WWE. The only real wild card from that respect are Dexter, Lumis, and Joe Gacy, because they are the champions, but they don't really scream ladder match specialists. But they scream throw bodies just around the place and just and just see what happens, really. So yeah, I think it's going to be crazily chaotic, and that could be a lot of fun. It could be very dangerous with so many bodies around the place doing stuff. Like it's gonna be quite funny to just see 8 people just standing around, like kneeling down just around the ring. So I'd say, okay, it's not my turn to get in the ring. I've just got to wait here for a little bit while 2 people doing stuff in the ring. Yeah, I think that it. In terms of winners, I think they'll just have the White Six retain. Like this is a good opportunity to put the belts on Fraxium, because if you do see value in them being a top tag team, you get to have them beat loads of other people in the tag team division, but not like pin the White Six. So saving their credibility to an extent, and just have Fraxium go up and win the title. Same thing with Andrade and Ray Fénix. If you see a long-term future for that team, I kind of hope for the Lucha Bros' sake that they don't see long-term future in that team, and so in the draft they get separated, and Ray ends up on the same show as his brother. Yeah, so I guess my prediction is, I think, gun to my head, I think the White Six is just going to retain. But if I was to say a title change would happen, I'd go with Fraxium as the main pick. And then I guess the only other thing to say is you got to feel kind of bad for like Pretty Deadly and the God del Fantasma. Yeah, like the only 2 teams that miss out on this match in the SmackDown division.
I forget who, but one member of Pretty Deadly is injured.
Oh, okay.
So that's
I guess Carmella.
I guess
Miss Mello or whatever they're called isn't in this either. So I guess there are some tag teams missing out, but they've picked they picked the 5 best tag teams and the current tag champion to be in this one. So I'd say it should be chaotic at the very least.
And Los Garza right now, they've got the whole AAA thing going on. So it's like, if you want to try to make the argument,
you can't have people hold 2 titles. You can't have
right. It's not like it's been a regular thing, right? Yeah. But if you want to make the argument that, like, okay, maybe they're busy elsewhere because they haven't really been on TV yet in the past couple of months since, or a couple of weeks since winning those belts, you could try to be like, they're focused elsewhere and whatever they, but the Carmelo Miz and Mello Don't Miz as a tag team, and he's not even wearing the Andre the Giant necklace anymore. I don't know what it is about that Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, whether it's a purposeful thing or it's just a weird like albatross, but it's like they, for fucking 11, 12 years or whatever it is at this point, they cannot, one way or another, push somebody, even if it's a minimal push, for more than like a month and a half. They just refuse to at that point. They just give it up every single time. Like, they made a fucking necklace for this guy. And then they're like, okay, in about like 2 weeks or whatever, you're just going to get rid of it. The fuck did you do it for? Like, I don't understand it. But Miz was gone for a little bit doing the American Gladiators tapings and stuff. It seems like he's back. So I do think that they're probably going to get something a little bit going forward with that. But I'm in the same boat as you. I think that if you want to switch the titles here in a way that it doesn't make Wyatt 6 look bad, it's a great way to do it because it's a ladder match. Nobody takes a pin. But I think that that's also a great way to keep the champions in that kind of position, because you can get Fraxium in the future wins those belts just in a regular tag team match. And they have like their moment at some point in this match where it's like, all right, it looks like Fraxium's going to win, but then that's when like Uncle Howdy does some kind of bullshit and, you know, Eric Rowan's involved or whatever. And I'm leaning towards Wyatt 6, but if there is a title change, definitely agree with you that it would be Fraxium. And I do think that unless something weird happens, Fraxium's going to be the team that beats Wyatt 6 either here or at some other event down the line. Be really surprised if in particular, if it's Andrade and Rey Fénix that wins this, I'm going to be very shocked that they went in that direction. And then we only have one more match to talk about, and that is Naomi versus Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. It's the match that we got at WrestleMania, except for you swap Naomi and Bianca Belair. It's a follow-up from Evolution, where Naomi ran in and stole the potential for Rhea Ripley to finally get a win over Io Sky. I don't really know why they're going in this direction 100%. It's not really what I would have been booking, but then again, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have been booking in this kind of environment. I wouldn't, you start me at the beginning of the year, the Royal Rumble would go down differently as well. So it's a chain of reaction of different events. But if it's as simple as Rhea wins the title here by pinning Naomi, then I think that that's weird, because why not just give her the belt and have her beat Io? I really don't think that Io is winning this belt back. That would be the most shocking result in my mind. And then if Rhea beats Io, that's weird, because why have her beat Io here instead of at Evolution? And then you got the lingering thing after with Naomi. It's not like Clash in Paris is that far off. It's the end of August. So I'm just leaning towards, I think the simplest thing is Naomi retains and Naomi goes up against Stephanie Becker.
Yeah, I think it would be weird to see either Io or Rhea win. I'd prefer it just from a match quality standpoint, but it's more of a case of, it would kind of actually annoy me a little bit, because you have this excellent match at Evolution, what many people would consider to be one of the greatest women's matches WWE's ever put on, and you kind of spoil it with a cash-in. I guess in some people's minds, you improve it with a cash-in. From my perspective, you ruin it with a cash-in. And then you just decide to put the title on one of them anyway, like several weeks afterwards. I just think, well, just change it. You could have just changed the title and had a cash-in. Well, what I would prefer is you do the cash-in afterwards, but either way. But I think that it would just not ruin, but what was the point of the whole thing if Naomi just loses the title here? Maybe just the whole point of the thing was, oh, let's round off Evolution with cash-in, and that is buzzworthy, and that's enough, and that's a viral moment, and that's all that matters to modern day WWE. But if it's not as hopeless and depressing as that, then it means that there must be some kind of plan or idea, or at least attempt to push Naomi or to make her a somewhat sustainable champion for at least a little while, or to build her up for something else down the line. So that vision or that hope for the future would be suggest that Naomi retains the title here, and then goes on to face Stephanie Becker at Clash in Paris, and whatever happens from there happens there. But yeah, so I would go with Naomi retaining, and then we see what happens. The alternative is the Rhea wins, and that's always a possibility. But yeah, I'll go with Naomi.
I don't think Naomi is going to be champion if she retains the title here, because she could lose. I don't think she's going to be champion by the end of the year, and they love Stephanie Becker, and for good reason. She's over, she's great, she's already been a champion in NXT, so they know that they can depend on her. She checks off all the boxes that they should. And it could just be, maybe they decided, you know what? Let's have Naomi have this little title reign and then drop the belt at Clash in Paris. And Rhea moves on to something else. Rhea starts feuding with Becky for the Intercontinental title, or maybe Rhea gets drafted over to SmackDown and she is in a position where she's challenging Jade Cargill, or if Tiffany Stratton retains or something. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting at the very least, because no matter which direction that they go, I see pitfalls and I see potential positives. So Last question I have to round out this whole discussion. What do you think opens and closes everything for these 2 nights?
Opener of night 1 is Roman and Jay versus Bron and Bron.
Bron.
Yeah, because Roman has to open or close every single show. That's pretty much, as I know it's always been speculated thing, but they've proven it enough times to say that's might as well be true at this point.
I think that's the same, yeah.
And main event depends on the cash in, but I assume it's likely to be Gunther versus CM Punk.
Agreed.
Yeah. Night 2.
I mean, obviously, it's Cody and Tina.
Yeah, Cody and Tina's the main event. Yeah, we know that. I'd open with the ladder match because I think that you get all that stuff out of the way because it just feels like a big rigmarole to set up in between things. Then again, they're going to have like 15 advertisements between every single match, so maybe there is plenty of time to set things up. The alternative is do the Women's World Championship match and open with that.
That's what I think that they're going to do.
Bookend it with the biggest matches, but I would go with the tag title match as the opener.
I'm kind of seeing the option of like you bookend those night 2 options with the 2 world title matches, and then in between there you've got 2 gimmick matches, the Steel Cage and the TLC match, split between Dom Styles and Becky Lyra. So you gotta go like triple threat for the women's world title, and then maybe the Steel Cage match, and then you go Becky, Lyra, and then TLC, and then Dom Styles, and then Cena Cody, like that kind of thing. But they've done weirder variations. And again, we've already talked about like even just the idea that night 2 is significantly more interesting and probably going to be the better show and all than night 1 is. So they planned this for some reason. Then, some gathering around the table at the conference thing that we saw on Unreal. Somebody planned it out. So we'll figure that out when it comes to Saturday and Sunday. Of course, there will be a post show immediately following both of those nights. And in the meantime, if anything changes with the Drew McIntyre situation or anything like that before we get to the hot tags, we will talk about that on the hot tags. Rob will give his quick opinions about what he thinks is going to happen on this card too. We got other hot tags to break down as far as the Blake Monroe promo. We've got the stuff that happens on Dynamite tonight and other things from Raw and SmackDown and so on and so forth. So the next time you're going to be hearing from us is going to be Friday afternoon, Friday night when it comes to the hot tags. But in the meantime, make sure that you show your support on all the different things that you can find on the link tree at amangotree.com for the Smark Out Moment links there, the Fanboys Anonymous links. We got the Happy Gilmore 2 watch along that we had done the other day. And everything else that's on those websites and stuff. And follow all of my other accounts you can see there. Make sure that you're following Callum as well.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wigmeister14. Check out the Power Rankings every single Saturday over on smarkoutmoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. This next upcoming one will happen before SummerSlam takes place, so it won't include the results from that show, but the following week's ones will do, so make sure you're tuning in every week to see how the rankings fluctuate. And while you're there, you can also check out the Fantasy League, also at wwefantasyleague.com, to see how our teams are doing. It's a big weekend for potential points with like 2 pay-per-view worthy shows, or from a points perspective. And so, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for changes to be made, things to get closer together, depending on who gets the right results when we do our final predictions as well. So, yeah, make sure you follow that along as well.
Alrighty, everybody, you know the deal. Drop your comments below. Tell us what you think about what we said, what your predictions are, and everything else that you want to chime in about. And head up to Discord in the meantime. And stay tuned to smarkoutmoment.com, Dynamite coverage, and all the other different things you can find there, and so on and so forth outside of this whole realm. And we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.